What is going on in the royal family?
You know how much I think of the royals, but I think Catherine Middleton is incredible.
Before we get to any of this, it is time to talk about Harry and Meghan.
What about King Charles?
Princes William and Harry.
I think we should have a moment for some patriotism.
When you think of the royal family, it's likely Princess Catherine, or King Charles, or Prince William who come to mind. But who works harder than Princess Anne? Who's more down-to-earth than Zara and Mike? And who's a safer pair of hands than the monarchy's secret weapon, Edward and Sophie? These are the monarchy's unsung heroes, and why, although they might not get the attention they deserve, they remain integral to the British royal family. Princess Anne, also known as the Princess Royal, began undertaking royal duties at the age of 18. Anne is widely regarded as the most hard-working royal. In 2023, she performed over 500 engagements and regularly tops the end-of-year list of the most engagements carried out by any royal.
The Princess Royal, Princess Anne, who wasn't always that popular at the beginning of her royal career, is someone who, like her father, the Duke of Edinburgh, late Prince Philip, used to say, just gets on with it. She ploughs her work. She's great with things like Save the Children. She is an unsung hero, a national treasure, because she doesn't look for any accolades. She doesn't, she just does what is expected of her. And she, I think, is someone who, when she does get up to speak, speaks eloquently, speaks matter-of-factly, and gets on with the job. And I think most people really, well, certainly the King, really do feel that they've got a great supporter with Anne. She speaks a lot of sense.
Princess Anne is a pretty formidable character, both within the institution and outside it. I think when people think of Princess Anne, they often think about those polls that come out every so often about being the hardest working member of the royal family. She's pretty much no nonsense. Whenever you're working with her, she treats the journalists like telegraph poles. She doesn't care whether you're there or not. But yet, there's a real central force to her work. It is all about the work and the charities that she represents, the organisations that really benefit.
So to my sister Mary Joy, thank you so much for being such a steadfast part of that development for 35 years, for never really taking a backward step in terms of the challenges that everybody faces, and to creating a very, very exceptional place as a very centre.
When you look at the evidence of how hardworking Anne is, it's plain to see. She's outstripping members of the royal family in terms of engagement. She's flying all over the world to make sure that the royal family is being represented.
Last year at Prince Philip's funeral, they walked apart. Today, side by side.
One thing that Anne has been able to do throughout her life is actually be a fantastic wingman for the King, also when he was Prince Charles. She is a fantastic support to him, and when you see them together, you can really see how strong their bond is. There was some documentary footage where they were just talking very off the cuff with each other, and they clearly have a fantastic and very supportive relationship. Obviously, Anne is only a couple of years younger than Charles, so they really grew up as a pair initially when they were very young. But Anne also is incredibly hardworking. She does hundreds of engagements a year. I think it was more than 400 last year. And she has more than 300 projects. So she does a lot of the, less glamorous jobs where she's just basically covering a lot of ground, travelling all over the country, sometimes all over the world, and getting her face and the royal family brand out there in front of ordinary people. She would have met a very significant percentage of Britain doing this, but also she has some very important, very high-profile projects. She's a patron of Save the Children. It's a fantastic charity and a really, really great cause.
It's no coincidence that she's called the King's trusted lieutenant. He relies on her counsel completely. It is her that is advising the King. It is her that is representing the family when he can't be there. And I think, she might not have a central pillar role within the royal family, such as the Prince and Princess of Wales in the future. But when you look at the nucleus of what the monarchy is, it's certainly where Anne stands. When you look at the evidence on these polls that come out, Anne is head and shoulders above the rest in terms of royal engagements. And the reason that is because not only she has a lot of patronages and organisations that she is intertwined with, but she doesn't really get involved in the infighting and the scandal of the royal family that we've seen over the last few years. She has had her fair share of tumultuous times. Of course, her divorce, which happened in the early 90s. And of course, then you look at the way she has recovered from that. And I think people respect Anne. She is the epitome of what it means to be a member of the royal family, intertwined with royal duties.
I think Princess Anne she's just an absolute classic example of where if you're a royal family member, you can just if you keep your nose out of trouble, people will love you. And she puts in the hard yards and the hard work, which is what people want to see. They want to see royal family members getting out there and kind of, earning their crust. But she has not tried to do too much. She's not tried to fly too high or burn too brightly. And she knows that her role is a kind of supporting role to help Charles, help the Queen, help her mother when we had Elizabeth II, and not particularly to steal the limelight, but to get round all those huge number of charities that the royals have to visit in a year.
When thinking about Princess Anne, I'm often reminded of the time that she turned up to a school of autistic children, and one of the little girls walked up to her and said, "You don't look like much of a princess." And she turned to her and said, "Well, that's reassuring." And I think when you think about the sort of quick-wittedness of her response and the fact that that is exactly how she feels. She won't see her at the sort of glitzy balls or, being on the cover of magazines very much like the other members of the royal family, because it is all about the actual work for her. It's about the duty. She might not be the most popular member, but she sees her role as representing the monarchy in a completely different fashion to other members of the family.
And does not necessarily always get the credit she deserves, but that is also part of the role of being Princess Royal. It's not necessarily about getting the credit, it's about being part of a team and being a team player. And so she can still, bask in the same light that the royal family as a whole basks in. But no, she doesn't necessarily get the column inches and the praise that other royal family members get, despite the hard work she puts in.
Princess Anne might not have got completely all the credit that she deserves because she's not necessarily the most popular member of the royal family. She doesn't necessarily have the glitz and the glamour that she arguably had in her younger years, but her duty is all about the work. And I think that's where the respect comes from the public. And certainly this doesn't just happen in the UK and the charities and organisations she works with. It extends throughout the Commonwealth. Whenever she goes to Australia representing the royal family or abroad, she is absolutely met with huge adulation. And I think that speaks to volumes to her role in terms of just getting on with the job.
The Duchess of Edinburgh, the royals' secret weapon. Queen Elizabeth II's favourite daughter-in-law, and a savvy peacemaker capable of smoothing the choppy waters between the Sussexes and the rest of the firm. There are no shortage of extraordinary claims that have been made about Sophie Wessex. Sophie has transformed from PR girl to one of the most treasured members of the royal family.
Sophie Wessex, or the Duchess of Edinburgh, is referred to as the royal family's secret weapon because she's very diligent. She does loads of royal engagement. She gets her head down, she gets on with it, and she really gets on with people as well at those royal engagements. When she first started being a working royal and working with the royal family, she came from a PR and communications background, and she said that when she would go into these different charities and organisations, it took her a while to adjust from going in and advising them on PR and comms, telling them what to do, to listening to people and listening to what they've done and congratulating them and supporting them in that way. But she's definitely took on that role. She's adapted beautifully, and she gets on with it. People really, really love her. People take to her, and she's not afraid to take on gritty issues, women's issues, working with charities across the continent of Africa as well. Yeah, she just gets on with it. She's a good egg.
I've been meeting with survivors of sexual violence and the conflict. I thank them for their honesty in telling me what happened to them. Their stories are sad, and I hear many stories like theirs, sadly, from around the world. But I appreciate their time and their openness. But I know with the help of survivor centres that they will get back on their feet and they will be able to move forward.
I think Sophie Wessex is basically what they call a good egg. I mean, she's incredibly warm and empathetic, and whenever people meet her on an engagement, they always go away with a good feeling. She works hard, but also she does things differently. I mean, so she got very involved with the theme of sexual violence in conflict, which is, you know, it's not dissimilar to one of the things that Camilla's campaigned on. But Sophie actually went out to South Sudan to highlight the issue. I mean, she actually gets involved, and she wants to raise money for, I think, for the Duke of Edinburgh's awards scheme. She cycled from Edinburgh to London. I've not come across other members of the family who've done anything like that. But she's also got kind of great emotional intelligence. I remember being incredibly struck by, after Prince Philip's death, outside, I think, St George's Chapel, but she spoke about how his death was very gentle. It was like someone just took his hand and led him away. It was a very kind of touching quote, and it just kind of spoke to the sort of person she is.
That's because he always exchanged words with everybody, because it didn't matter what anybody was doing in and around the estate here and everywhere else. They all meant a lot to him, and he always took a very personal interest in everything that they were doing. So they all have got stories to tell, and most of them quite funny as well.
And actually you can see parallels between her background and even the Princess of Wales's background. That sort of grounded, not aristocratic, but bringing the sort of common touch, as it were, to the royal family. And I think she's had to grow into the role. She would have made some PR business mistakes along the way, just as Edward had. But I think she began to grow into it and understand what was required, just in many ways like the Princess of Wales. It's never easy. And when you come, you're suddenly in the spotlight. But the one thing, and just having sort of watched them talk about each other, there is really a great sense of comfort and security within each other. They're deeply proud of their children, and you know, he's living in Bagshot House, and it's a huge house, but he thinks nothing better of hacking away at the garden, just trying to lead a normal life. And I think they do try and offer a normal life as possible for their family. Not that they can, but he's fully aware, and they both are aware of the role that they are expected to play now, and no nonsense approach, just get on with it. If we've got to step up and do a bit more, we will. We got one of our children's at university, one's in 16, so, you know, older, but they'll be around as much as possible, but they're in a position where they can step up and offer a very positive role to help the royal family through what is proving to be a difficult year.
I know Sophie in Duchess of Edinburgh, and I don't know if she would like to be called a secret weapon. She's just been going on and doing the same job ever since she was a member of the royal family. She is very steady. I remember her working with her at a journalist charity event, and she just really works the room. She's got a great temperament. She's got a great knowledge of people. She was in public relations before, so she just knows how to do the job. And I think the Queen, the late Queen Elizabeth, absolutely really valued her. To the extent she said, you know, to Meghan, I think, you know, perhaps she can learn a little bit from Sophie, but Meghan chose not to take that advice and said, no, I'll work with Harry on this. What she could have learned is a lot from Sophie, because Sophie is somebody who just stays under the radar, but just does the job. And I thought she was incredible in supporting the King during the coronation, and all the family actually during the death of particularly the Duke of Edinburgh, which she felt really hard, and the death of the Queen.
We were lucky enough to go to Scotland for half term. And I don't know if you remember the photograph that I took.
You took of the Queen and the Duke.
It was, I was pregnant with Louise at the time. And we went up there during half term.
You okay?
And
just to be there in that place was an oh my God moment. So I think they'll come and go. But you have to let them come and let them go.
I don't think we see enough of the Duchess of Edinburgh. I mean, she does so many engagements across a week. If you look on the Royal Diary, 5, 6, 7 engagements in a week. But the thing is, the royal rota don't go to those engagements. They go to the engagements of the King, the Queen, the Prince and Princess of Wales, you know, your 4 principals, as it were. They don't necessarily publicise the visits of the Duchess of Edinburgh. So I don't think we see as much of her as we should, because she's really working hard in the background. And herself and Prince Edward have been, you know, steadfast and strong for years.
Prince Edward was Queen Elizabeth II's youngest child. He was born at home in the presence of the Duke of Edinburgh, which is a real sign of how the family had sort of changed and evolved since the birth of Prince Charles. There's 15 years between Prince Charles, or now King Charles, and Prince Edward. So a lot had changed in that family before Prince Edward's birth, and now we're seeing an established grown-up family on their way to modernizing the monarchy. Prince Edward went through several familiar schools, Gordonston, just like his brother, attended Cambridge University to some controversy based on his A-level scores, and joined the Royal Marines before ultimately settling into a short career in theatre and TV production. And when that ended up not working out, he stepped into his role as a full-time working member of the royal family, supporting his mother.
It's taken a long time for him to sort of come out of the shadows and sort of find the playing fields, because he tried commercial ventures along the way, which didn't really work, and got him and Sophie in a spot of bother. So it was never an easy course for him to find his feet, as it were. But there's no two ways about it. Over the last, I think probably before COVID, increasingly he was content, happily married, 2 lovely children, just gave him the self-confidence, because I don't think he always found it very easy. He was the last of the 4, you know, it's probably a bit, you know, overshadowed by the other personalities. He was much younger than the King and his elder sister. So clearly that may have caused, not problems, but it was a different dynamic. But I think over the last few years, and certainly since the death of his father, he's been a changed man in terms of his perception and his commitment to the role, which we've seen in various speeches recently, of just how much he I think, values what he's doing now on behalf of his family.
He's the best of fathers, the most loving of husbands, and he's still my best friend.
Prince Edward's titles have sort of changed and evolved over time. He's obviously born Prince Edward, and when he was married, he became the Earl of Wessex, with the promise that when his father, the Duke of Edinburgh, passed, the title would pass down to them. And I think the emotional significance of taking on his father's title was more important to Prince Edward than a hereditary title would be.
His Royal Highness, the tantalizingly eligible Prince Edward, coaxing courage.
He probably regrets doing It's a Knockout back in the late 80s, which was, and with Sarah Ferguson, which was, that's what I mean when I say Edward hadn't always got his right, what he was trying to do. But in terms of where he's at now, I don't really have any, per se, a sort of golden nugget. Even when at school, but I was much older than him, so I didn't have a sort of day-to-day connection with him at school.
Edward and Sophie have proven themselves to be really down to earth while also being incredibly hardworking and dedicated. They've seen the real world, they know what it's like, and their service just feels like more connected to the people.
Zara and Mike have long been known for their friendly relationships with everyone in the royal family, marking themselves as key players binding members of the firm together. The pair have a particularly close relationship with the Waleses, while Zara also has a close bond with her cousins Beatrice and Eugenie. Despite calls for a slimmed-down monarchy over the years, much of the public have demanded to see more of Zara and Mike on official duty.
Mike and Zara are really popular, but I think it's because they're so level-headed and normal, and they've had careers outside the royal family. Remember, Zara doesn't have a title, so she's never been a working member of the royal family, but she's gone away and succeeded. They've also gone through a lot of adversity. Zara, particularly in her sports, we followed her career, and she was really successful. She had some problems qualifying, I think, for the Beijing Olympics, but then she came back with a medal 4 years later.
When I set off cross country, I thought, maybe it could distract them, but they were so focused and dealt with it really well, and just got on with what we asked them to do.
And I think people really respect what she has done by not really just leaning on her. She could have just sat at home. She could have, got money from her parents and just had a quiet life. But she's gone away, worked hard, and had a successful career. And she won BBC Sports Personality of the Year. That's how popular she was. But marrying Mike, I think, really added to that, because he had also gone away and been successful. They're a successful winning couple. He won the Rugby World Cup. And they're fun. Okay, they're down to earth. You could imagine having a pint with Mike and Zara. Some of the other members of the royal family you probably couldn't, but with this couple you could imagine, sitting in a kitchen, having a bit of banter, having a glass of wine and having fun with them. And I think people appreciate that.
They look like the kind of people we all want to hang out with. Mike proved that when he went on to I'm a Celebrity and regaled everyone with his stories about his trousers splitting as he danced rather vigorously in front of Princess Anne, for example. They've also both achieved great things in their sporting careers, and they've earned respect for that. They've got a big network of friends from the sporting world, from the showbiz world, but also genuine friends from childhood. Zara's best friend is an NHS midwife who delivered their third child, Lucas, on the bathroom floor at home when he came a bit earlier than they were anticipating. And they come across as fun-loving, ordinary, normal couple with a great sense of humour. They're also not afraid to share some of the tougher times. Zara has talked very openly about the pain of having 2 miscarriages and helped to reduce some of the stigma about talking about baby loss. And I think this couple are a huge asset to the royal family.
She said that she's actually gained comfort in people who have contacted her since and shared their experiences. So that talking about it does remove the stigma, if you like, the taboo.
Yeah, it does. And it also makes you feel less alone. And one thing that a lot of parents will tell you is that you feel isolated, you feel like you're the only person in the world that's going through this.
I think Zara is a great character, somebody that actually, if she had wanted to have a role in the royal family, would have been a great asset, actually. But the way it's turned out, they get on with their job, they earn their money, they do what they're going to do. And they're very popular in Australia, very popular when they go down there, because they're just matter of fact, they get on with it. They're quite funny too. There's no question that the king absolutely adores Zara. She's almost like the daughter he never had. He always dotes on her. And she's, you can tell, can pretty much say anything to him and is very, very close to her.
King Charles has always enjoyed a very close relationship with his niece, Zara. They're often seen laughing, hugging at royal events. And he also played a part in choosing her name. Comes from Greek literature. He's a big fan of Greek literature, and Zara meaning bright as the dawn, and he suggested to his sister that this was an appropriate name for her.
I think one of my favourite stories about Mike and Zara, and it really just shows what a lovely couple they are. I think they were talking on one of the podcasts, and Mike said to Zara, "In 2012 you married a legend," which Zara said, well did I? And it soon appeared that actually they got married in 2011. And Mike was in a lot of trouble for getting the year long on a public broadcast. But they had a good laugh about it, and it really showed how relaxed and fun they are as a couple.
Well, when she was 17, Zara got her tongue pierced. She'd headed out of boarding school and gone to a local tattoo parlour and turned out modelling her new accessory to her uncle Prince Charles's 50th birthday party. Her mother, Anne, typically unfazed. Her only question was, "Can you still speak?"
Anne, Sophie Edward, Zara and Mike are worth their weight in gold, and the royal family can count themselves lucky to have these impressive assets. But what does it really mean to be an unsung hero, and why are they so important?
I think when it comes to the royal family and talking about the unsung heroes, I think we love the idea of the royal family and that keep calm and carry on mantra. And so we love the people that do that just get on with it. So the Duchess of Edinburgh, Princess Anne, the Princess Royal. These are two really hardworking royals that just get on with what they're doing, that don't bring us scandal or gossip, that haven't released a book or haven't sat down with Oprah, a la Prince Harry. And I think a lot of people like that element, that they just get on with being in the royal family, get on with supporting the charitable causes, get on with the daily job of making sure that they give those charities prominence, being of service. And I think people love the idea that it's people in the royal family who just use their privilege in a nice and quiet way.
The royals have to cover a huge amount of mileage getting all around Britain, and some royal family members get a huge amount of praise. People treat them like the absolute best of society. Princess Anne is somebody who, she's unsung in the sense that people aren't going to go out and talk wax lyrical constantly about how incredible she is. But if you take Princess Anne out of that equation, then an enormous number of royal jobs simply wouldn't get done, which is hundreds, maybe even thousands of people each year who wouldn't get that opportunity to meet a royal and feel like that they'd had their moment of connection with the monarchy. So she's unsung because people don't necessarily take loads of time to sing her praises, but she absolutely does play a very important role in the royal machine.
I think we always concentrate on the big headline grabbers, and then occasionally we wake up to the fact that someone else is very diligently doing their job, doing their work, doing all these engagements, and no one has paid any attention, and it turns out they're doing it quite well, and perhaps we should pay attention to them. That's all that is.
Whether they like it or not, being part of the royal family is very much like being part of a popularity contest. Some of them might not have the glitz and the glamour of other members of the family, like the Prince and Princess of Wales. They're the people who are going to be talked about. They're the people who are going to fill the newspapers and the magazines and the websites. But when you look at the unsung heroes, as it were, the Princess Anne, Prince Edward, they're the people who are actually getting on with the job, and often without fanfare. And unfortunately for them, they might not get the column inches they deserve. But within the institution, they are particularly safeguarded, and it's very important that they are allowed to do the job in the way that they want to.